recorders. Okay, and during this already beginning of September, when children are going back to schools, if they are going to school, and we might have little ones, we might have more maturing ones, adolescents. This very live show today is actually meant for all ages, parenting at all stages. And the topic of it is responsibility. How to think about responsibility and how to develop responsibility. Just to focus on this coming 20 minutes on this subject, which usually maybe we didn't have the time to consider, and also gather some facts around this so we can have better choices in our parenting, which sometimes we need to initiate on the go and stems out a lot of it from automatic, inherited imprints. So it's a good time to pause and contemplate and have some ideas and carry on. So tonight I was the trigger for this short session was coming from a few parents who will ask me, when do we actually initiate the idea of responsibility for children? When do they actually mature enough to take on some kind of responsibility? Because they have a dog, and I really want them to develop some kind of care for this dog and some kind of feelings of contribution, either to the dog or to the house around them or to the family. So when is the right time to start? So this kind of questions that I came across over the years have taken me to this search. The first thing I found was that responsibility comes to be mature in our brain, that is part of responsibility in the brain, mature only on the age of, and listen carefully, 28. So when we are 28, we can say that we can fully, in a biological way, can take this asset or this quality or capability of every human that can be developed by everyone to take on responsibility in a full way. So we see this capability to be one of the executives qualities of our human design. It's not something that we are meant to develop or hold at earlier stages. Maybe the better way to think about it is the way to think about development for a human in broader terms, where we build the capability and the abilities to have consideration, to have insights of others, to have compassion, to have a better way of handling with things, and of course to do multitasking. These are all very late stages of development that we tend sometimes to take from our own experience and try to encourage our children to get there, but it might be too early for them. So the way to think about it is that we have a training, long-term training of 20 years and sometimes more to champion these qualities and to be trained first at the early stages that can be the platform for the success of the later stages, like the case of responsibility. So in this coming few moments, I want to focus on these very early stages and what we can put there in the platform in the very early years and not the very early years later on. What are some of the ingredients or how to think about beginners while we are trying to help our children grow to be people that contribute to society around them and want to give of themselves and can allow and offer cover. That's the way I use the terminology, to offer a cover, which means not only to be responsible for something, but to offer the quality that we want to. Because we can take a dog, yeah, and feed it every day, but do we take it for a walk every day? And do we take it to the vet when it's needed? And more and more and more, we can see that for everything, there is the more understood way of what we need to do, but there's the extra care, the extra attention, the extra love that we can put into everything. And of course, it is a matter of how much energy we have and how much resources we can invest. So I'm not speaking now about our responsibility as grown-ups, as parents to our children, but I'm speaking about how to train the aspect of responsibility. And the first, I can say, stage of the ladder is something that we do not actually teach children, or the more accurate way to say it, that we teach it by exampleship. So from the baby, from the from the pregnancy, we know that babies absorb everything around them, their environment, and they take in the world. They take in the exampleship they see. The brain learns by copycats, by copying what he sees and reflecting and what he sees outside. So for the whole beginning of life, even until age 3, I suggest the best way, if we want to allow children good interaction with this area of responsibility and the willingness to take on responsibility, is to set a good example for it. And that's true for everything, because this is the way we learn best our human stature, our human qualities, is by exampleship, is by someone around who can actually show us how it feels like, not only what to do, but how it feels in the body, in the complex, and set irradiating, day after day, in small ways, sometimes in big ways, example of how it can be done. So the way, maybe the first thing to say will be to reflect on our own responsibilities and how do we take responsibility as parents. So this is the very, very early stage, right? For the second stage, I would want to offer to consider life forces that we have spoken about as treasures of the power of the will, passion, curiosity. Yeah, all these powers that children arrive with since they are babies. It's like embedded in them. And they're being granted with this, they come with this, we come with this as human beings, as sentient human beings for lifelong, right? So we want to keep them vibrant and potent, or these shimmering qualities of a child, right? We see it all the time, the expression, how he search and investigate and want to know and curious and try and play with passion and we see that in age 2 and in age 4, and you can see it in age 7. Many times when the child is being exposed for too much reflections that is diminishing from the environment, he can diminish these life forces. And we want to be sensitive to that. We want to find ways to encourage these. I spoke about it in previous live sessions, so we're not going deeply into it. But we want to understand that the power of will is an asset that we carry and is the basis for responsibility. Because when we want to take on responsibility, we want to take it as an internal wish and desire, right? Not that someone will pause on us this big commitment. It can be big for a child, 6-year-old child who doesn't want to do something. So just to consider in general terms, how do we want to nourish and encourage these life forces in the children, essence forces, and is another step in the ladder and can really be seeded as the success for later stages. So this is the second point, right? And the third point, which I want to offer just some more notions of how to think about responsibility. It's not that I'm going to speak about, from A to Z about it, but just touching in this homeopathic drops to offer us some pathways into it. The third one, I call it when we actually are accompanying a child, right? He's growing around us, with us, and he wants to take on things. He wants to take care of the kitten or whatever and fit in. My advice is take it easy, build it slowly, stage after stage, where the most important thing is allow success at any rate. So for a 6-year-old child, responsibility can be different from a 12-year-old child, of course. But anyway, look at it, until this child is 30 or 28 or whatever. How do we build it gradually so he will enjoy the process, so he would love the process, so he want to embrace more of it? So the other day I gave an advice for a mom that asked me about it, and I say, try to say to the child, he was 5-year-old, and he said, tell him, okay, let's try a month that you give water to your cat and do it once a week. You don't need to do it every day. I'll take a bit every day. You do it once a week. If you want to do it twice a week, okay, let's do that. But to give him the sense that every time and every effort he puts into it is wonderful, is great. Yeah, it is a success unto itself. Not with the expectation that he will follow up now for the next 10 years, but just to arrive to this twice a week or once a week for this coming month is a whole success into itself. So this thinking of taking it in small measurements, small step one after the other, is another good ingredient that the child would experience in himself. Yes, I can do it. Yes, I have succeeded to do that. And I'm now growing up. Yeah, I'm part of the grown up, which is, of course, a great deal of happiness, and the child would want to be included in our world. So this is another point and another step in the ladder. I already mentioned 3 steps. One notions that I would want to make about the adolescents, about youngsters at puberty. Usually, we tend to look at them and think, wow, they've grown up. They become big and suddenly even maybe taller than ourselves. And, mentally, they understand very well what's going on, that we need help, that we want to get some of their support and cooperation around the house. They get it all. The thing is, around this time, when the child is 13, 14, 15, his brain is going into a rapid, exponential development. And this is not a good time to, stand stiff with issues of responsibility. On the contrary, this is not something we have learned, because maybe for us it was totally different. Our parents, would immediately want us to get into work. Children, 200 years ago, they used to go into a factory to work for their families, right? Crazy. But today we understand something else. And the more we allow approach that is delicate, that is with a question mark, not with an exclamation mark, that is offering, that is checking, that is allowing the child or the young man or young lady to receive the support they need, the more they trust us, the more they want to be close to us, the lesser conflicts, or sometimes the uncomfortable feeling of growing up in these very sensitive times of puberty. So in a way, I would offer also there around adolescence to slow down our own expectations and to rethink them. And most important is the way to, how do we want to communicate them, right? And I have a great deal of stories around this. I have learned in a way, not only not to expect, but not to ask too much from my own children around the house when they become adolescent. But from time to time, I would ask them something in a polite way. And it was amazing because there was no question about it. They just did it, everything and totally. And when they didn't do what they should do, like forgetting taking their cups and plates from the tables and so on, I would just remind them in a kind way, not in a harsh way. And this is not the way I grew up, but I've taught myself this kind speaking, not only to the 3s and to the 5s and to the 9-year-olds, but also to the 13s and 15s, realizing that in themselves they're going through challenges, emotional, most of the time emotional challenges, not only within themselves, but also around issues in their environment, friends, and with us, the parents, of course. So this is another consideration. I really recommend the book Brainstorm of Daniel Siegel to really understand the case for adolescents. And the last point, just remember that responsibility, when we want to train our children to champion responsibility, care, insight, considering others, having compassion, taking on obligations, contribution to the world around them, offering cover, being able to receive other trust. All these very fine executives qualities, they need the way the seeding of the seed, and then the watering of the earth, and then the sowing and celebrating success. So these are all processes that the more we have the space to offer it our own well-being and kindness, the more we can expect a very good results for the years ahead. So if I would just want to summarize, if we can grow our children without stress, wow, amazing. When life is stressful, we can de-stress it with the right communication, even when it comes in retroactive way, like after the situation had gone and after the blow up had happened. And communication is such an important key. And the last one is just to pause, look into our own child feelings, his inner story, and support it, listen to it. This is true for all relationships and for the growth of beautiful young generations that we want to see on this planet. Interconnected into their own lives, healthy, and contributing around them. I really do believe that our responsibility as parents is to offer the kind of new mindset coming from new, in a way I would say even a new epoch parenting, because everything changes now, updates itself, and parenting should be up front there with updating itself in every age and with the same core of essential understandings, practicalities that are true, whether it's communication, mindfulness, and more. We want, this is part of our own responsibility for the future. And not only that we allow a better generation to flare, we can prevent what we can see around us as so much issues of mental health problems, emotion problems, and so on. And medications for children since they are very, very young. So this was another nutshell, another homeopathic drop that can enrich our own thinking in how to think about parenting and about sowing the good results in the years ahead. I really wish you good experiences. You are very welcome to send your questions and have a good night or morning or noontime, wherever you are. Goodbye for now.